right, welcome back, everybody. We are almost done with the chats. I promise you we're going to get there. I want to do one more quick video where we do a little bit of polish. Let's clean some stuff up around the edges. Our core chat feature, though, is working. We saw that in the last video. But there's a couple things that we need to do before we move forward here. And firstly, if we pull up the actual preview for the chat screen, so I'll pull up the chat view. We are actually no longer getting chats in our preview here. So we need to update our mock chat service to actually work in the previews now. I'm going to open up a second editor on the right and close the preview for this editor. So we sort of have like 3 screens here, which is pretty fun. On the right, let's jump into our mock chat service. Firstly, we are attaching this async throwing stream, but it's not actually sending anything back in the continuation. So we want to send an array of chat message model. So when we create a mock chat service, let's also pass in some messages, which will be an array of chat message model. So let's also pass in messages into our init. I will triple click this and Control M. Let's go ahead and also add messages, and the default will be chat message model.mocks. Let's go ahead and set self.messages equal to messages. And now when we load this stream, we should immediately be able to call continuation, yield, and yield the messages that we passed in. So if I reload the canvas now, which I will click the stop and play button, hopefully we can actually get some messages on our screen. And it looks like the messages loaded in. Cool. Now if I type something, we also need it so that when we send something, it updates the messages, which is clearly not working. So if I go to my mock chat service, we have the function here of add chat message, but we're not actually adding the message anywhere. So what we really want to do is take our messages array, we want to make it a variable, and then we want to go ahead and call messages.append and append our new message. Now, if you've been following along, you should already know why we are getting an error message here. Why do you think that we are getting this error message, and what do you think it means? Take a minute, try to figure out what it is, and I'm going to start talking about it in 1, 3, 2, 1. All right, so our mock chat service is a struct. Structs are value types, meaning that when we change the values inside a struct, we are actually mutating the struct. This is not a class, meaning there is no instance here that we can just update values in an instance. There is no reference to a pointer in memory. We just have the value type that is mock chat service. And I will link below a couple videos, again, about structs versus class versus actors, as well as how the sendable protocol works, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So if you remember way back at the beginning of the course, when we were creating our first environment values, I'll go back to the app view. We were on this view in like the first or the second video, and we talked about the environment, and there was the option between using the environment with the environment values and the key path, or the observable object. And we basically came to the conclusion that the key paths, the environment values are for value types, whereas the object is for objects or class types. So when we started our architecture, we started with just the services, and we didn't have the manager classes. And the services were all structs. We were doing that because we needed to use the environment with the key value here. And so these environment values wouldn't work with classes. So we made them structs because structs are sendable, but also because structs are value types. But as we built out our app, we added in all of these manager classes. And the reason this is important is because now these structs are no longer directly accessing the environment. So these services no longer need to be structs. They no longer need to conform to environment values. Now they just need to conform to the protocols that we have them set up as. So if I go and I look at the chat service, the protocol here doesn't say that chat service needs to be a struct. It only says that chat service needs to be sendable. And this is important now because when we go to these services, like the mock chat service, we can make this anything that is sendable. And again, I will link a video below about how to use sendable. So when we create services, we're going to default use a struct, but there's going to be times where we can't or don't want to use a struct. So the 2 other quick and easy ways to conform to sendable in Swift concurrency is either using an actor. So an actor would be sendable by default, Or we can make a class that is tied to an actor, such as the main actor. So a main actor class is also going to be sendable by default. If I go and I look at the chat manager is already on the main actor. And so in this situation, I think it makes more sense if we just keep our mock chat service on the main actor as well, rather than using just an actor. So for this situation, let's change the mock chat service to a class that is on the main actor. So now I can actually append to this array directly, and our error message should go away down here. We have one more error message here, which is super annoying, but it's related to this closure here. So if I delete this closure, our error message should go away because this is now all on the main actor. But when we pass in a function, a closure as a parameter, there is no confirming that this function is tied to the main actor. So in here, we could go ahead and mark this function as on the main actor as well. But really, the problem here is not that this function is not running on the main actor, but the real problem here is that the compiler does not know that listener registration is sendable or not. So if I got rid of the listener registration, the error goes away. So the real problem is not that we're passing in a closure, but we're passing in a closure with a type that is not sendable. So the question here is going to be, all right, well, how do we actually fix this? Because this is coming from Firebase. So hopefully in the future, Firebase can mark this as sendable. But for right now, we have to try to figure out a way to fix this in our code. So one quick solution here is what we're going to do is jump into listener registration. So this is coming from Firebase. Let's create our own local type that is a struct called anyListener. And this will conform to sendable. And then in here, we'll hold a reference to a listener of type listener registration. Now the compiler again is going to tell us right now that listener registration is not sendable. And so now we can add the pre-concurrency. Pre-concurrency basically saying, just go ahead and ignore all of the warnings related to sendability for the types within Firestore. And that works. But this is also going to ignore all of the other warnings from Firebase. So what I'm going to do for this one instance, and I very rarely do this, is let's tell the compiler that let's just not check this one struct, whether or not it is sendable or not. Let's pretend like it's definitely sendable, and the compiler doesn't have to worry about checking it. So we'll say at unchecked, meaning the compiler doesn't have to worry about checking whether or not this is sendable, just assume that it is. Now, I don't know for sure that listener registration is sendable. I don't have access to the code inside Firebase. But if this, ends up crashing our app at some point, then we can come back and we can find another solution. But for right now, I think this is going to work for our purposes. And maybe this is sendable. I don't really know right now, but I do know that I've built this app and it has not crashed yet. So let's take anyListener. Let's use this anyListener rather than this, because anyListener is sendable. So let's come here and make this anyListener. Let's jump into our chat service. This will be anyListener. Let's go to our Firebase chat service. We'll make this anyListener. So now in here, we need to change this code. So messages collection, chat ID, stream all documents. Click enter. This will be the listener. And now we'll call on listener configured, and we'll create a anyListener. We'll pass in the listener. All right, I will command R to build and run. And then lastly, we have one more error, which is that the stream chat messages, as we can see here, the stream chat messages is a synchronous method. So now that it is running on the main actor, we can tell the chat service that this method will also be a main actor method here. I will command R. Let's finish up with the compiler warnings. In the chat manager, we should now be able to call, this is anyListener. Chat view, the listener, let's make our listener up here anyListener. And then we should be able to call listener.listener.remove, as well as here listener.listener.remove. And I will command R to compile one more time. Cool. Let's go ahead and open up our canvas now. Let's Let's go back to where we were at the beginning. So I'll get our mock chat opening, and I will open up a second editor on the right. On the right, we're going to go to the mock chat service. So now I should be able to add chat message, and we'll append the message. So we're going to append the message, but then we also need to make the continuation listen for the messages. Let's come up here and let's make our messages now and @published. Some of you guys probably remember @published from before the @observable. We had these publishers in our code. So now we can use this publisher and automatically listen to the published values coming back. So here, let's create a task and we'll say, so I'll do in here for await value in, let's access the publisher with the $messages. See, this is a published publisher, and we'll go values to convert it to an async publisher. And then every time we get updated values, let's call our continuation and yield back those values. Let's reload our mock real quick. This should now load. This loaded, and now we should be able to type and say something, and then the AI should return back as well. Cool. We got our mock chat working, which is sweet. Let's X out of this and let's do a little bit more polish now. Let's go in here and let's talk to Olivia. Let's say, hey, what's up? Cool. And this looks like it is working. She's feeling a little bit overwhelmed. When I click on this, the little X button kind of lags in here. I see it occasionally after it loads. If I watch the X button, it just pops in. I don't like that. Let's go into our modal view, our profile modal view. And it must have something to do with this being an overlay. So I'm going to just quickly change the code in here. So what I'm going to do is actually where we have our image, I'll just put this inside a Z stack. And let's just put our back button, our X button in the Z stack above the image. This way it renders within the entire content, and hopefully that will fix our bug. Z stack alignment, top trailing. Let's build and run it. Let's click in here. Let's get Olivia's profile, and that worked perfectly. All right, we are almost done. I thought we were gonna get to a little bit more in this video. We're gonna have to do one more final video for the chats, which I'll talk about in the next video. Let's wrap this one up with Option Command C. Let's go ahead and make this a feature, and we'll say mock chats, because we added the ability to actually mock the chat data now so that we can set up all of our previews. Let's stage it, let's commit it, push it up to GitHub, and I'll see you guys in the next video.